What is going on, guys and gals? Today we have a Pen Battle 3 8000 that's having a couple of issues. First we have the handle right there. That's frozen in terms of the elbow. We'll see that in a sec. But we also have the main issue of the spool not actually turning. And there's the handle right there that's frozen. But we'll see the spool right here when I turn it, it doesn't move at all. It's unlikely there's a drag knob, but we're going to remove that just in case, see what's under there. There's a couple of options or culprits that it could be, just based on the spool shaft interaction. One that is that it's frozen to the spool itself, but the second one is that it also be frozen to the washers inside the spool. That bearing cover right there you see fell off because it's broken. We'll replace that when we fix this reel. But we're going to open this up right now and isolate the shaft and spool, just so we can have those alone to play with. Looks a bit cruddy inside there, a little disappointing in terms of how it looks. It definitely needs a service. But now we're seeing the spool and the shaft here, they're frozen together. We're not sure why. We're going to go ahead and separate them. In that process, you see the shaft on the left hand side, but you see that gold piece in the middle right there. That's the sleeve that goes over the shaft. That's pressed on there. So that didn't come out. That's how frozen that is to the spool. Now I'm popping these drag washers out because I want to see if it's actually frozen to those drag washers as well. I feel like it's not, and there we go. It's not frozen to the drag washers, just to the spool itself. So I'm gonna partially press this out, but I'm gonna show you the rest of it, simply because I want you to see that it was indeed frozen inside there. And when we pull this out, we're gonna see that it's not a whole lot of anything on it. It doesn't look, to the naked eye, it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look like it's like it should have an issue. Now we're pushing this back on because essentially what happens is that goes and gets pressed back onto that shaft. Theoretically, you want to get a new one, but we can work with this one and press that back onto the old shaft if it's still in good order. Now I'm checking inside that spool and I'm seeing not a whole lot of corrosion. So it just goes to show you, it does not take a whole lot of corrosion for you to have some serious issues. So kind of want to keep up on your reel and maintain them. See, right now I'm pressing that in there, trying to put it back in. It's clearly not going in, but I don't see a whole lot of anything. I'm a little somewhat befuddled by it. So I've cleaned it up, and now I'm testing it to make sure it's working. I noticed that it's a little stiff in certain orientations, so you see me go back and forth a few times here, just to make sure I get it to where it's working properly. I'll start popping it back and forth just to make sure it's looking really good, like so. And that looks good overall. Now we see it's pressed back on there, but notice I didn't show you how I did that. I also didn't show you how I removed it. It's a bit of an advanced technique. It's something that I may show down the road in a different phase or stage in this channel, but not right now. So right now I'm just testing everything out, making sure that everything looks good there, and then we're going to stick that back inside the spool just to get a feel for how it's going in and out of it. See, that looks pretty good. Not a lot of resistance there, so that's good. So now you see me cleaning these drag washers. I want to clean these things up because I want to stick them back inside later on to see how the shaft goes through them, and you'll see what I'm referring to when we get to that point. But I want to make sure they all look fine as well. And as I'm cleaning these, I'm looking inside the middle of those metal washers to make sure that there's no evidence of corrosion happening there. As you can see, I just did right there. So now to the bail flip. We'll see that's really sluggish. And to me, it seems like the issue is more on that side right there that you're looking at. So I'm taking this one off, and I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to leave the other side on, which is where the line roller is, and just work on using this side as a side to fix. So let's see how that looks. It's pretty good. It's not perfect. So it seems like there is some resistance happening on this side as well. So we're going to go ahead and remove that one also. Now the bail arm is a little difficult to remove here because it's kind of stuck to the post on that rotor. So if you look closely at it, you'll see some wear there. going to use a light wire brush and some sandpaper, some fine sandpaper to clean that up. And we also use some pipe cleaner for the holes inside those pivots that you see rotating around the rotor right now. And we see that it's working pretty good. So we're going to move on in a second. I'm just double checking a couple things here before we move on. Now we're going to go ahead and grease up this shaft really well before we put that inside the spool. Because I don't want to get frozen in there. It's not something I necessarily like to do, because then it can transfer onto the washers, the drag washers. But you see, we're also doing some grease inside the spool itself, and we're going to use a Q-tip to kind of get deep inside there, because that brush is not doing the job. So I'll do that, and then I'll flip it over and do it from the other side. It's just paranoia at this point because it was frozen before, so we want to make sure that we mitigate that as much as possible. Now you see me go ahead and stick these drag washers in. Like I was saying earlier, I'm sticking these in ahead of time to pretend like it's just a spool that we're putting onto the shaft. So we want to see that it works properly going back on the shaft with everything intact on the spool. And while you watch me put this drag assembly back together, at the end of this video I'm going to leave a link to a complete breakdown of a Penn Battle. I think it's a Penn Battle 3. It may not be the 8000, but it's very similar, so you could use it to do most of the Penn Battles. So look up for that at the end of this video. Alright, so now that we've got that spool put back together, we're going to go ahead and stick that back onto the shaft to make sure it's just going on there smoothly and easily as it should. So here's the moment of truth, and that looks good. That's the first part. There's still a second part that we have to go through to make sure that this spool is functioning properly like it should, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Now I'm sticking that drag washer on there because even though the spool is spinning with the spool is freely spinning now, we don't know if the drag washer with tension will cause that reel to lock up again. And we see that it's not doing that, but I'm going to go as far down as I can to make sure that that's not the case. And that's looking pretty good. Now we'll go ahead and test the reel crank with the bail flip. We see that it works, so that's great. Thanks for watching.